Hello, and welcome back to Brigador, where I tricked y'all. I made you think we were done with this game, but we're not just yet. We're going to do 2 special episodes this week. Today, I'm going to read you all the pilots, because I felt like I should. Partially because, somebody wrote all these biographies for them, short as they may be, but also so you can appreciate the art on each of them. Because somebody put a lot of care into that, and I think everyone should see them. Anyway, without further ado, here we go. Number 1, Norman Osberger. A relatively recent immigrant to Nova Solo, Norman fled more civilized sectors in the wake of some terrestrial scandal or another. Nothing worth mentioning, but he seems to be consumed by it still. Our sources paint him as a hard luck case and subpar mechanic. Certainly no Corvid would tolerate his shoddy work. Unlike most hapless NEP drivers, however, he knows exactly what his abilities are and has something more important. He has nothing to lose. His death wish may be perfect for our purposes, provided we offer the right insurance package to benefit his survivors. Merlo Reese grew up in the West End slums, racing reclaimed junkers for sport and prize money. Later fell in love with a dashing Corvid pilot, joined the cause. Intended to raise their daughter as a would-be freedom fighter when a loyalist kamikaze drone disintegrated her husband. Reese turned to mercenary work to keep food on the table. Lacks strong community ties and is increasingly uncomfortable with what caretakers she can afford. The racing background and desperation has made her a competent pilot, and if her daughter's future is invoked, she's liable to accept the contract for a modest sum. I'm going to butcher some of these names, so apologies. Ephigenia Sang. Anal retentive, overly loquacious weapons scientist working for the NEP Design Bureau. An intuitive grasp of technology enables her to parse some spacer tech, help compensate for the NEP shortfalls. Valuable to her superiors, but has little personal ambition. Seng's interests are purely intellectual. She would be at home in a corporation lab. Arturo Nemi. Many consider alcohol to be an obsolete chemical. Once popular, its deleterious effects no longer suffice compared to the state of the recreational arts. Even so, many soldiers turn to drink in remote climes, even spacers. Nemi put the bottle down when he settled in a cosmopolitan habitat to produce a wife and children. When they were killed, finished by an occurrence of red lung during their gestation, he became an alcoholic mercenary once more. Fate and drink have led him to truly dark paths, and the stipulations of previous contracts continue to accumulate. A trusted source testifies that his consciousness has been subsumed by legal behavior modification subroutines. The man who was Nemi is gone, but the profit and loss of Solo Nobre will be very enticing to the thing which moves in his place. Ripley Snell. Bassist for 12-7. Not that the rest of the band is still alive. Hot chicks are always the bassists. Yes, I'm a pig. You've seen my file photo. Anyway, Snell is a common enough story for Solo Nobre. Grew up in the Deads, conscripted and then cut loose after a light sentence for an altercation with an officer in a Texas 7. Tough to get a job in Solo Nobre with a dishonorable discharge. Spent a few years loading freighters in one of the only remaining authorized ports outside the city. Working a job like that beyond the city wall makes mining in the Deads look glamorous by comparison. Soon after, joined the band and joined the Corvids. Not sure in which order, but there's a reason 12-7's Panic Wall is a Corvid anthem. Phil Bromlin. Maintenance man and groundskeeper at the Noble Dunes Country Club. Mutters continuously to himself. Hates the suburbs, but loves golf. Questionable grip on reality. Castor Pinion. Old Solo Nobre family, 3 generations of NEP lifers. Castor is planning the same, but doesn't think he'll ever be officer material. Tested decently enough with neural jacks, but likes life in a tank crew better. No coercion is needed here, simply appealing to his vanity should be sufficient. Telma Mullen. Born to one of the most respected families in Solo Nobre, Mullen developed radical political notions and became strongly opposed to Glorious Leader's isolationist policies. When she was caught in a raid on an insurrectionist newspaper, Mullen was blackballed from society and forced to join the Corvids for protection. She proved to be a talented pilot and rose to prominence. Nonetheless, her only loyalty is to her simmering political ideals. If Solo Nobre falls, the blockades will open. I believe that motivation will be sufficient to transform her into the lethal force we need. Sieghart Bolver. A dedicated career soldier with a long string of successful deployments, Bolver has finally hit his personal ceiling. Giftless in political maneuvering and neither known nor liked enough to be sought out for higher command through his own merits, Bolver is slowly realizing that he will die with the same stripes he's wearing now. Under different circumstances, he might be placated, as his desire for generalship is based in his correct belief that he's suited to the task. However, knowing he'll be passed over for less talented but more politic officers, knowing that they are holding him back, is turning his loyalty into bitterness. Bolver seems ripe to change to a mercenary career path and take revenge on the system that let him down. Aleene Vock. I sense your reaction even now and preempt it. Yes, Tuno Vock, the very same, is her father. She shares his deep sense of tradition. Since leaving for the creches? I don't know. She has devoted herself to studying the arts of the Lorentz projectile, the automatic cartridge feed, and the focused beam laser. Following the Vock path, she approaches the time of his succession and must match her father's skills and best him, or else be sterilized. However, at last sync, odds and prevailing opinions were very much against the younger Vock. I suspect she has been too conservative in her planning, too staid in her preparation. I will compose a formal message of intent, accompanied with a contract. She will appreciate the archaic form and perhaps recognize the educational and political advantages of bringing destruction to Solo Nobre. Niall Black. One of the Corvids' best irregulars, Niall had a short and intense schooling in guerrilla tactics when conducting raids on NEP-embedded supplier/TAC profiteering convoys. Ultimately loyal to an ideal that died before him, his romantic workers' notions of justice, collective bargaining, and retribution are raw nerves, making him a passionate but easily manipulated pilot. Kalinha Ka. Raised by an older brother in a wasteland outside the Deads, was poised to join the Corvids, instead witnessed them catch her brother in a crossfire with NEP tanks. Barely enough of him remained to fill a shoebox, so now she's a loyalist, making a name for herself gunning down insurgents. Aleene learned last year she has a rare congenital disorder, lethal within her next 5 years. Spacer Tech has long solved these kinds of issues, and the offer will make her an easy recruit. Nobu Sonoda. Sonoda grew up in the polyglot slums of Solo Nobre, practically raised in the NEP motor pool by his technician parents. Records show his NEP adjustment exams results were exemplary, and he was headed for a promising career in the garrison. But he had too much imagination for military life, so he turned junk brat and cobbled together a fast, low-profile escape machine out of spare parts. Starving at the edge of the city, he stole rations from resettlement offices to stay alive. A few years later, the Corvids noticed him when he walked into one of their camps and out again with their prize tech. They recruited him after extended and bloody negotiations. Now esteemed highly in the Corvid society, he perversely values freedom above all else. A volatile asset, but bends easily when threatened with confinement. Gingo Serif nurtures aspirations of becoming a famous film director. Stayed in the military past mandatory conscription age to pay for her experimental productions. As of this writing, Serif has yet to be offered any sort of film contract, as her creative output is too exotic. Her ultimate goal is to create a 7-part fantasy cycle that she believes will immortalize her. This will require enormous amounts of money, attainable in her position only through contracting with the SNC or compromising her creative vision. She will find the former option far more palatable. Qatar Jotsun. A genetic eunuch with a rare hormone imbalance, Jotsun was produced as part of the infamous Texas 7 phenotypal entertainment clone series. Like the rest of her stunted cohort, Qatar has a continuous awareness age of 6, but possesses the physical and mental development of a young adult, with certain enhancements particular to her intended profession. Ooh, that's a... Ugh. That... Ooh. That really... That was rough. That was a rough sentence to read. Yikes. Like most spacer adolescents, they claim to be the prototype for humanity's future. Unlike them, she has no right to succession of the human race, being entirely artificial in origin, surviving the purges only through cunning and a deft mind for legal technicalities. Having known only strife and persecution, Qatar would be at home in the battlefields of Sola Nobre, and I believe it may be the only place that may offer her peace. The Auditor. We exalted Spaceborne know how much more we have developed compared to the soil vermin. Even so, the Auditor and its kind have surpassed the rest of us by the same measure or more. If not for certain contractual stipulations I serve, it could very well be considered treasonous to speak of the Auditor to others, even among the Spacers. The Auditor is considered eccentric, even by us, disdaining what it calls the primitive tactics of its colleagues. The Auditor stalks the unpopulated areas of a people at war, encountering no resistance and leaving no witnesses. I do not know and will not speculate as to its aims, as doing so would be foolhardy in the extreme. There is only one tactic available to you, the reader. Hope and pray that you will not meet the Auditor. If you do, there will be no time to run. Johnny Five Aces. Johnny Five Aces powered down the Magna bike with a not quite unhearable hum, and checked his chronometer. Damn, he hissed. Through his clinched. Yikes. Through his clinched. Damn, he hissed through his clenched teeth, which were surrounded by the stubble of 5 days, where he had not shaven himself at all. It was almost Chromodon at Clash Point. Already, oh god, was this like a backer bonus or something? Because this was clearly not written by the same person. Already, the sun was sitting at Wollaston's Hall, ablaze like so much molten metal. Or is this a joke? Hold on, I gotta look this up. Let's see here. Oh. Wow, that's... Huh. So... It's intentionally written poorly. The source of the text comes from the Something Awful forums. In a thread that's literally called "Let's all use words incorrectly and hope we get put into Zyborn Clock." Zyborn Clock is a failed game project that Johnny was originally from. He also appears... I knew the name sounded familiar. He also appears in Fallout New Vegas. Weird. This hurts to read, but I'm gonna get myself through it. Ablaze like so much molten metal or a coin gyrating in the air, tossed there by the uncaring hand of an imaginary god that doesn't exist, born from the interior minds of the hobbled masses. The sky was the color of a television, tuned to a dead channel that was orange. Damn, Johnny, thought. We thought we were opening a new beginning with our mad dreams of time travail. But ironically, the only time now is the time of which we're out of. It's almost humorous. Yeah, I could almost laugh. If I hadn't cried that part of me away when my parents were massacred by Dr. Malaprop and the government-sanctioned murderers of capital. He licked a Nicosheen brand swaggerette and took a dip drag, sinking further into his inferior horologue. He thought of Nina and her mellifluous buttocks that he used to love to bang. Even now his nano-enhanced hearing could almost hear... Nah, I'm not reading the rest of that. You guys can read it if you want. Steve Lichman. The friendliest dreadlord you'll ever meet, or as Steve puts it, we are all skeletons on the inside. Happy in a cozy tomb beneath one of Solonobre's many necropoles, he'd spend his time hanging out with friends, reading comics and pranking visitors. Then they killed Jason. You can't tell, but Steve isn't smiling anymore. Not even Sergeant O'Malley can hold him back this time. Steve Lichman is actually a character from a comic. A comic I quite enjoy. It's not particularly long, so you could look it up if you want. Modesto Pyres. Cross the wrong officer and find out just how quickly your military career prospects can go from MOG recon battalions to legs Hangar night watchman. Marvin Beck. A disgruntled vehicle specialist with an encyclopedic knowledge of Solanobre tech and an even strong grasp on spacer capabilities. Beck has a few other interests and no known personal relationships. Rumored to be literally a mech fetishist. His appraisal of opposition technology shows an admiration which suggests unstable loyalties. He may be willing to abandon the military simply for the opportunity to study new technology up close. Scotty Graf. Real piece of work. Too violent for the high society she was raised in, too reckless for the intelligence track usually taken by such types. NEP funneled her into a tinkering peacekeeping force, where she went on to brutalize any daring enough to demonstrate near her deployment. She's taken to peacekeeping with a zeal that goes beyond professionalism into naked sadism. Not a strategic thinker, but excellent in moment-to-moment, aided by a natural talent for intimidation. Lavelle Archer. It is unfashionable to be seen as good in modern spacer society, and I personally don't care for the affectation. But like most artists, Lavelle cares not for his public persona. He lives each moment as an artwork and the narration of those moments is left to others. In a unit, Lavelle Archer provides the necessary and unpopular support and backup that is required for true victory on the battlefield. He does not shrink from treachery when it is the optimal path. He commits unspeakable acts according to his own perverse code. Archer is a true ally and a remarkable individual, even among our exalted caste. Constance Pharaoh. We don't know much about this one. Rumors circulate about a past career as a knife fighter, but she refuses to comment either way. An extremely effective pilot with the Corvid's improved chassis, her cunning, resourcefulness, and obvious tenacity make her a considerable threat and potentially a useful asset. Doc Volhard. A highly decorated pilot with training in mechs, tanks, and anti-grav. Also a fraud. After double-crossing a solo Nobre black marketeer, he killed a young conscript and replaced him with the help of advanced plastic surgery. That surgeon happens to be a former associate of mine. Holding the threat of exposure over Volhard will be enough to make him do what we want, no matter how dismal his odds will be. Akar Singh. I can't figure out what would make Singh turn away from the regime. Everyone who has served with him seems to like him. The usual justifications don't scan. Model military man, no family trouble. Not many Sikhs immigrated to Nobu Sonoda, though most are in IXO now. Great leaders' conscription policies have been as open-minded as you get. Ask the paraplegics in service. So I don't think there's an angle there. Is it possible that even with the government in shambles, great leader still has double agents in place for an eventuality like this? Keep an eye on him. Keep an eye out, especially when you exfiltrate him. Marie Locke. As incomparable as my intelligence network and skills are, even I am limited to what data exists. After the so-called Troubles, many repositories of civic data, ancestral records, and genetic information were purged in a misguided attempt to give equality to an innately unequal population. As a result, there is very little information on Locke's ancestors. There are no direct antecedents in any file, and she seems to have assumed this name upon reaching the age of majority. Curiously, she has a national identification number and supporting paperwork. Either her original records were scrubbed by someone very talented, or she accurately forged the requisite details. These are all traits which typify the Corvids, and she paints her face like one, yet she maintains an active NEP duty assignment with a respectable record. Surveillance and reports indicate a high degree of skill, yet her service transcript describes only average performance. A thoroughly unremarkable soldier on paper, yet with killer instincts. There are no other Locks in Solo Nobre, due to the particular demographic distribution of the Nobrian population. Where did she get these skills? Why do we know so little about her? Why pick such an unusual name? For one of the vermin, she has piqued my interest, and I hereby commit to unearthing these answers. Until then, I am left with this much. She does exist, and she does value compensation. I will assign performance bonuses accordingly. Alright, I know I said we were going to do 2 episodes. I think it's going to become 4, because we're 24 minutes now, and I'm only halfway through the pilots. So, we'll be back with more pilots on the next episode.